Hello, everyone. This is Steve Dellasan, and welcome to this week's edition of CEOs You Should Know. I am joined by Stu Lubow, the president and CEO of Dime Community Bank. Stu, thanks for being here today.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
We're excited to have you. It's really exciting to see you step into the new role of president and CEO of Dime Community Bank. What were some of your first thoughts on goals you wanted to accomplish when you first took that position?
Well, I joined the bank in 2017, and my goal at that point and my responsibility was really to turn the bank into a vibrant relationship commercial bank. Prior to that, Dime had been a kind of a sleepy thrift savings bank, and I joined the bank to turn it into a commercial bank, and we really brought on a whole new team and a whole new philosophy of relationship and community banking. So it's been exciting.
That's awesome. Congrats.
Thank you.
I know that you've made a few different transitions, right? You're president and COO to CEO, which I'm sure could be quite the transition. What were some of the aspects of leadership that you found the most fulfilling and challenging during this transition period?
Well, it's interesting. As I said, I had the role to change over the bank, but I wasn't at the top of the heap, so to speak. And look, I've had a long career. I've been in banking for, unfortunately, 44 years. So and I've started at the largest banks in the world, and kind of went down from there. So I started my career at Chase Manhattan, and then started a couple of banks and was CEO of those. So coming into Dime and having this great history, but really having to transform and grow a new bank within an existing bank was exciting and a challenge. And it's been a great 7 years, and the last couple of years as we merged two banks and then created a bigger Dime, and I took over, has been exciting. It's been an interesting time period in terms of the economy and whatnot, but we've done very well, and we're set up very well for the future.
That's awesome. Very exciting to hear. You just mentioned, right, you've been in the industry for over 40 years. How has your view on community banking changed throughout your career?
Well, I think community banking today is even more important than it's ever been. There are fewer community banks. The banking industry is now really dominated by large institutions, and even our institution at $14 billion is a small institution. And what we do is we're part of the community. We're part of the fabric of the community. We build relationships. We know what our customers need, what their wants are, what their business is like, what the community is like, which is very different than a larger institution. We have local decision makers, as opposed to someone doing and underwriting a loan in Texas or North Dakota. So we're really part of the community, and we try to service our customers as such. It's kind of like big fish in a small pond, right? So that's how our customers are to us. Every customer is important. I like to say we have private banking for everyone.
That's awesome. That makes a big difference. What are some of the key priorities that you are having Dime focus on in the coming years?
We're really focused on continuing to build a commercial relationship business, our C&I business, our healthcare business, and not staying away, but kind of diversifying away from just what was a monoline business of multifamily lending, and really having a full service diversified business bank. And we've even, since I joined the bank, we started a residential lending group. Thinking about a bank that's been around for as long as we have. When I joined the bank, we didn't make home loans. We do that now. So, really having a well-diversified, commercial banking, relationship-based organization is what our goal is.
That's awesome. We just talked about community, right? And you guys have a strong presence in 63 different locations, and you're targeting to continue to grow in places like Staten Island, Westchester County. What specific opportunities do you see in those markets and in those communities?
Well, I'll go back to my comment before. There are fewer and fewer community banks, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in both those locations, they're dominated by large institutions, and that are not really part of the fabric of the community. And so we think there's a tremendous opportunity in both Westchester and and Staten Island for us to grow our footprint, to grow our relationships. It's kind of a gift that keeps on giving in terms of the larger institutions, and we think we can do it better. And so far we've been very happy with our success in both those areas.
That's awesome. Excited to hear that and excited to see what's to come in those two areas as well. I know you guys have over 800 employees. Being in the CEO role, how do you have an impact on the positive culture at Dime?
Look, I always say our two biggest assets are our people and our customers. Right? Forget about the balance sheet and our financials. That's what makes Dime what it is today. Building those relationships, you build those relationships by having good people, as your employees, and we're really a team. So maybe it goes back to my younger days as in sports and whatnot. I think you really have to build a team and be part of the organization, and we try to include everyone. We have events, we have spirit committees, we do things around the organization that create a cohesive unit. But really, again, our biggest assets are our people.
I think that's a great mindset. I think culture and people are two of the most important things of any organization.
Absolutely.
So it's refreshing to hear. So looking ahead, what are some emerging trends that you have your eye on that are going to impact community banks or Dime in the future?
Well, I think there's going to be, particularly after the most recent minor financial crisis that the world has gone through, and particularly here in the United States, I think you're going to see more M&A, and so you're going to see smaller banks getting bigger, and again, there'll be more of an opportunity for Dime to service those customers that are displaced and disrupted. Here in New York metropolitan area, there's been quite a bit of disruption in the last year between mergers of institutions that went to other institutions locally, and then a failure of a local bank, and then some problems at the bank that took that bank over. We've been on the offensive. We've been hiring teams of private bankers from some of those institutions. We hired 14 teams.
Wow.
In the last year, we've hired a new healthcare vertical. We hired a new national deposit team, all locally. So I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity, but I think the disruption will continue because there's going to be, continued M&A because as the economy slows, growth is going to be more difficult, and some institutions will not be appropriately set up to handle that kind of environment, and they'll look for partners, and I think that's going to be an opportunity for ourselves.
That's awesome. It sounds like you guys really have strategically set yourselves up, even in the midst of all that distractions and stuff, that you guys will come out on top.
Yeah, I mean, we're one of the few banks that during this whole period, we've grown deposits $1.5 billion.
That's awesome.
Right? So while other banks were struggling to get through this period, we, as I said, went on the offensive, hired teams, and we brought in new customers, new deposit relationship, new loan relationships, build out additional lending teams to take advantage of the opportunity.
That's awesome. Well, with community at such an important core of the company, it's probably no surprise to anyone listening that you're involved in several nonprofit organizations. I know one in particular is the Let's Garden Foundation. How has your influence and experience really approached your leadership by working with these different nonprofits?
Well, look, Les Garden is near and dear to my heart. I've had several family members afflicted with pancreatic cancer, and who are no longer with us, and so it's important to us to support those kind of institutions that really support the community. In my case, the Les Garden was very helpful to me. I didn't know where to go when my father was diagnosed, and they kind of guided me through the process and helped us get to the right doctors and do as much as we possibly could, and so giving back is just felt appropriate, and and we I still get involved in various fundraising events and charity events associated with Les Garden, as well as the Dime Foundation that we created the last few years, where we raise money for various charities. Lustgarten is always one of our charities. So
That's awesome to hear. I think it goes back to what you said earlier about your team and about your culture, right? And having that human aspect of it. So I think that's really important to
absolutely.
involve and give back. So
Right.
love to hear that. So as former president of community bank associations, what key issues, as we look ahead, do you think are missing from banking right now?
Well, I think community banks are always looking toward how do we service the customers, and today there's a cost to that, and so some of the issues out there today are really how do you balance regulation and service with satisfying your shareholders and profitability, and also satisfying your customers. So I think that's something that everyone's always struggling with. Some folks don't seem to be able to make it, and they maybe
Mhm.
do an M&A transaction and merge themselves out of existence. We've been able to kind of maneuver the field, provide the right kind of service for the right pricing. I always say, there's an old saying, an educated consumer is your best customer. We
Mhm.
try to explain that we're not always the cheapest, but we will always give you the best service. And there's a cost to that as
100%.
well. On the other hand, we understand the customer's needs, and so fees and things like that are always part of the equation, and how we maneuver that field is something that we're proud of, and we've been able to do very well. The regulatory environment creates an environment that you have to be very cognizant of that. And the other thing is, from a CRA perspective, community reinvestment, Bank Dime got an outstanding rating, meaning we are giving back to the community.
That's
Right
awesome.
there are not very many banks that get an outstanding rating in CRA, and we're proud of that.
Congrats. Something to be proud of. We've talked about the industry and banking a bit. I'd love to talk a little bit about you personally. So, what personally inspires you, both on a personal aspect, but also a professional aspect?
You know, uh, I love building things, right? So going back to my career, 44 years. I started my career at the third largest bank in the country, at Chase Manhattan. David Rockefeller was the chairman. That tells you how long ago that was. And then I, after that, went to work for a bank here in New York City by the name of Dollar Dry Dock. I was at 29 the chief operating officer. Kind of funny, you say we're $14 billion. We had 800 people working for us. I had 800 people working for me back then with a bank that was half the size of what Dime is today. So technology has changed,
Yeah.
the people aspect and the amount of people you need. Um, and then after that, I got involved in turning around a couple of banks. And I've been around so long that I've seen a number of financial crises, the S&L crisis of the late 80s and early 90s. I was brought on to turn around a bank, and did that. And then I started two banks. Started a bank in Bergen County, New Jersey, and eventually sold that to another institution. And then I started another bank in 2003 or 2005, I should say. I started working on it in 2003. It took 2 years to get it open, but in 2005 we opened up Community National Bank. I started that in Great Neck, New York. We grew it to $1.5 billion, and then we sold it to BNB. And eventually Dime merged with BNB, and all those folks came back to work for me, and
Full
all those
circle moment.
customers. Right? So and then, as I said, when I joined Dime, I was really building a bank within a bank. So
Hmm.
I really enjoy the entrepreneurial aspect of building a bank and building an organization, and building it obviously profitably, and maximizing our values for our shareholders and whatnot. So all of those were public companies, and I really enjoyed uh, that. And of course, here at Dime, we've had some success, and we look forward to more.
That's awesome. I'm sure all those experiences and life lessons also really make you the perfect person for this role too.
Well, we hope so.
Let's talk a little bit about family. I know family is a huge part of your life. Can you tell us a little bit about your family and how they support you as CEO?
Well, I actually come from at this point, a banking family. My sister
It's in your blood.
is a managing director in compliance at the Bank of New York. Um, My wife is retired now, but she was a banker and held and led a retail organization in her past life. Now she takes care of her dogs and is very happy doing that. And and then my daughter just graduated from Wake Forest 2 years ago and is investment banking, focusing
Congrats.
on M&A of financial institutions. So we're the dinner table is filled with discussions of a lot of things that we're talking about today, which is
Yeah.
the financial aspect as well as the customer aspect of banking. It's kind of what we all do.
Yeah, that's great. Given your background, right, and your 40 years plus experience, what guidance would you give a young professional that's looking to make their way into the bank sector?
We have an intern group that comes in every year. 15 kids out of college or in college that are kind of thinking what they want to do,
Mhm.
and the first thing I say is you got to like it, you got to love it, you got to enjoy it. You spend 8 hours or more a day at an office.
100%.
You really need to want to do it, want to be there, and enjoy your surroundings and what you're doing. It's all about, particularly as you're young, it's all about experience and learning, and finding a mentor that kind of brings you along and gives you opportunity. And I know in my case, that was a key part. I started at as I said, the largest institutions. I did well, but I also got a very broad understanding of what the banking industry was. And then from there, went on to various roles, leading up to, CEO and chairman of a couple of banks, and also starting a couple of banks. So it's really, it's you got to enjoy the work. You
Mhm.
got to, I know there's a lot of talk about, lifestyle and balance, but work is work, and you got to,
100%.
and hopefully you can find something that you not only provides you balance, but you enjoy the work,
Mhm.
and really that's what I tell our young people.
100%. I think that's great advice for anyone that's getting into their professional career, right? You have to love what you do,
Right.
no matter what industry you're in. So I think that's perfect advice. Well, I know you guys are celebrating a milestone. Congrats. Dime Community Bank is celebrating 160 years this year. What does that milestone mean to you in the organization?
You know, it's when you think back on it, when you really think about it, we thought, oh, it's 160 years, that's great. But when we think back on it, or I do, I consider it, it quite an honor to be part of an institution that's been around since the Civil War. And I think there's been 17 CEOs in the history, but only three in the last. I'm one of only three in the last 50 years.
Wow.
So it's it's an honor, and it's kind of interesting when you think that when Dime started, Abraham Lincoln was the president of the United States. So it's
Wow.
it's an
That is
interesting
crazy to think.
thing to think about, and
Yeah.
quite an honor to be part of an organization that has survived world wars, civil wars, depressions, and whatnot, and we're still here and servicing the community.
That's awesome. Well, you just mentioned all the previous CEOs. When eventually your legacy, what do you want to be remembered for at Dime Community Bank?
Look, I think I'd like to be remembered as someone that brought Dime to the next level. Right, we brought it from we've done so far brought it from a savings bank to a community commercial bank, and I want it to be the most profitable, successful, customer oriented community commercial bank in the country, and that's what I like to see down the road. Hopefully, I'm here for a few more years.
Absolutely. Well, I could definitely tell from our conversation today that you have the passion and you want that. So I have no expectation that you will not be able to accomplish that during your time.
Thank you.
So we covered a lot. Do you feel like there's anything that we might have missed that you want to share with our listeners before we wrap up today?
Well, the only thing I want to say is, again, it's not a one-man show. It's all about the team, and I want to thank all our Dime team members for the hard work and the effort they put in every single day. And during the tough times, they're working even harder. In the last year or two, it's been a little bit more interesting, as I said earlier. And the effort that they put in has really accrue to our benefit and the organization. And so I really would like to thank them, and I'd like to thank our customers for being loyal and providing us the base to be successful.
Spoken like a true leader. Well said. Well, Stu, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate learning more about you, learning more about Dime Community Bank, and all the insights in the industry as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Tune in next time for the next week's edition of CEOs You Should Know.